Hi everyone. Today we are going to make some plaster of Paris figurines for children's paint kits. These are a lot of fun and can be distributed for birthday parties, or you can make them up as packages and sell them at a market. But they're a lot of fun to make, and they're also a lot of fun to paint. So I've gathered my supplies here, and what I have is I've got my mold. So this is just the super cutest little unicorn mold. I have my plaster of Paris. I have some white glue. I have a measuring cup, rubbing alcohol. That's what it is. I've got a little RA on the top there. Rubbing alcohol. I have a small whisk to mix my product with. And then I've got a little spatula here. And then you're probably wondering what the toothbrush is for. This is actually a really inexpensive way to sort of jiggle your mold so that the air bubbles come out, because dreaded air bubbles can be pretty awful. I'm just going to grab my water. Now I live out in the country, so we have well water, which is not a good type of water to use for this medium here. Our particular well has a lot of iron in it. So I have distilled water, or actually bottled water from the city, and I just put it in the fridge to cool it. Now this will also really help with mixing and slowing down the chemical reaction between the water and your plaster of Paris. You don't want to use warm water. You don't want to use room temperature water. You really want to use cold water. So that's why I keep it in the fridge. So let's get started. I'm going to move some of this out of the way so I can work. Okay, so this is a really nice product to use. This is a silicone measuring cup, and it really works well because it's very flexible, and if you get any residue in there, it's really easy to scrape out with a spatula. So I'm going to put in 1 1/4 cups of cold water, and here I have already pre-measured 2 cups of plaster of Paris. So let's get this going. Okay, so with this, my next step is to just add a little bit of white glue, and you just need a dollop of it. I haven't been able to prove or disprove whether or not this step actually helps in hardening or whitening the plaster of Paris when it's finally dry. So I just put a little dollop in here. There we go. Some people choose to use it, some people don't. I think it really depends on what outcome you want, and if it makes a difference for you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I haven't made any of these items without the glue, so I don't know the difference. Give that a little stir. You may not be able to see it, but I have a silicone mat here just to protect my countertops. And you're going to want to wait until all of the plaster of Paris is actually sunk in the water, right? So that gives it a moment to be absorbed in the water. So your measurements on a plaster of Paris packaging is 2 to 1. So 2 cups of plaster of Paris to 1 cup of water. I like to use 1 1/4 cup. It just keeps it makes it a little bit more runny, but I find that it also gives you a little bit more time to work with the product. Before it hardens up. One of the things also when you're working with this product, never, ever, ever put this down your sink or into your pipe system at all in your home, because this hardens up and it will ruin your pipes. So I keep a bucket of water close by just to rinse off all of my tools and to wash out the molds, because again, you don't want to put your molds in the dish. I mean, you can put your molds in the dishwasher. I'm pretty sure that most of them are dishwasher safe. However, you don't want to put them in the dishwasher when they have plaster of Paris residue on them. Okay, we're just waiting until that all gets down there. It's another thing that's really nice about these silicone measuring cups. And I just got them off of Amazon. They weren't that expensive at all. It came in a package of 3, so 3 different sizes. Okay, so we're just going to mix this up. Just until it's all the lumps are gone and it's like a really, really smooth batter. There we go. That's looking great. I'm just going to put both of these in my bucket of water off to the side. Now I'm pretty sure I'll have enough to do 2 of these. Again, I got these molds off of Amazon. They're just so adorable. Guess I didn't clean that one out as best as I should have last time I was using it. All right, so this is just some rubbing alcohol. This helps to alleviate bubbles. I'm just going to spray this just a little bit. Okay, now comes the fun part. handy dandy spatula just to get the rest of this out. And I have just a little bit left. I'm just going to tap it a little bit, make sure it all gets to the edges here. Got a little bit more I can put in this one. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Yay. So at this point now, this is still cold from the cold water, but you can see that this mixture is starting to harden up a bit. So you have a bit of time, I'm going to say a minute or two, to work with this before it starts to really harden up. So there we go. And I'm just, again, I just have a bucket of water over to the side here, and I'm just going to pop it right in there just so it stays damp for the moment, because I don't want it to harden. You can let it harden, and then with this particular item, you just have to squish it up and it'll all pop off. But I'll wash that out in a minute. Now this is where I use the toothbrush. I'm going to just spray it a little bit more with the rubbing alcohol. Again, you'll watch the bubbles just disappear. I don't seem to have a lot of bubbles today, which is always a good thing. But this is, I just use this to sort of vibrate it a little bit. It just sort of helps to get the bubbles to the surface. You'll see some makers will actually use like a personal vibrating bullet. I find this this method works just as well. And you can go and buy it at Walmart or your local drugstore. I think we're pretty good there. I think I've got one little bubble up in this guy up here. Let's see if we can, there we go. There we go. Okay. And that's it. That didn't take us very long at all. So now comes the difficult part, the waiting. You need to wait. Plaster of Paris does set up in about an hour. We're going to actually wait probably 2 or 3 hours because I want to make sure that it's completely dry. And then we'll pop them out of the molds and we'll see about, I probably won't be dry enough to sand, but I can show you some drier ones that I will sand for you. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, we're back. We've waited now probably about an hour, maybe 2 hours. I'm going to take this one out of the equation because it is still a little damp, but this guy looks like he's good to go. Yeah. All right, let's pop these guys out. You can see that there's some bubbles here that right here. Look at that guy, hey? Now, sometimes when we're taking these guys out, you've got to make sure that we work on this little unicorn horn here, because sometimes they'll break off. Let's see if we can get it out today without snapping it off. Oh. Ooh, look at that, eh? Yeah, you can see they're still a little bit wet on the back. So they're kind of gray, not nearly as white as what they're going to look like when they're completely dry. You can probably hear my doggies prancing around on the floor back here. These look really good. All right, we'll take this last one out. So for the most part, I'm really happy with these. There's a couple of little air bubbles on one or two of them. This guy just ended up with some weird stuff going on there. But in all honesty, little kids aren't going to care about that. They just want to paint them, make them look pretty. So I'm going to let these dry probably for 5 days before I package them. And I'm going to come back and do another video on how I package these for sale. Okay, I'm going to put this away over to the side for now, because what I want to show you is, here are a couple of these that have been drying for a few days. So you can see that the difference here, right? So this guy is a little, because he's wet, and he's a lot drier. So this is what will look like after about 4 or 5 days. So then what I do is I'm going to, I just have a little tray here that I work with. I'm going to sand the back because they are a little rough and the edges are a little sharp. So because these are for children, I want to make sure that I sand down these edges just so that no little fingers get cut. So I just have some sandpaper here. And I just bought some from like Home Depot, or I can't remember, I'm in Canada, so Canadian Tire. Oops. And I don't find, I find that the sort of the higher number grit sandpaper works really well. So I'm just going to rub this on here. You can see the difference there, hey? There we go. Now, what I also wanted to show you was I have this bucket of water that I talked about earlier that I use for rinsing off the molds and for rinsing off all my tools. And I'll just dump this in here. And then also I'll just take, and this is just a really cheap paintbrush. You can see all that dust coming off there. And there you go. So again, I'll wait for 4 or 5 days before I do that until they're quite hard. I might actually just take the edges off this a little bit. And it doesn't take much to actually sand these down, because once plaster of Paris hardens up and it's completely dry, It's very, very light. There we go. There. And he's all ready to get packaged up. So again, I'm going to do another video on how I package my products. You can join me for that one. And the other thing I wanted to mention is this bucket of water here. Like I said earlier, you don't want to be putting this down your drains. Because I live out in the country and I have about 10.5 acres where we live, I just take the water, this water, once this gets really full, and I'll just go dump it out in one of my fields in the back. And it doesn't hurt anything out there. But what you can do is you can wait till this evaporates, and then what'll happen is all of the residue from the plaster of Paris, the dry plaster of Paris, will be in the bottom, and you can just scrape it out and get rid of it that way and throw it into the garbage. So there you go. These are the dried ones, and here are the wet ones. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like it and you've enjoyed yourself, like and subscribe, and leave some comments in the comment section and let me know what your experience is with plaster of Paris and how you do yours. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.